operating as a high expectation individual. This is something I think a lot of people are falling into the momentum of. I don't want to say the trap, because we do set high expectations on ourselves to deliver on what we want out of life, our health, and all of these career-based objectives that we look to achieve moving forward. So my guest this week is, you'll know who it is. It's a familiar person on the podcast. It's Dr. Jill Hamilton, but we're not going to be talking about anything that's MedFit related this week. I actually want to kind of dive into the whole process of what it's taken for Dr. Hamilton to become a GP, a successful GP, because the process to get to somewhere that we feel like is out of our reach feels very, let's just say, we get in our way of the things that we try to choose for ourselves because we feel that we're more comfortable by staying in a comfortable place. Now, putting yourself out there as, say, you're going to become a GP or you're going to become a business owner, you want to have this expectation that success is going to come maybe overnight. But I think being a GP is a very, very good place to start when it comes down to the level of commitment it takes for a person to go, this is what I would like to do. And it's the point where you become a GP. How long does it actually take to get there? So first of all, I'm gonna talk to you as Jill this one. I'm not going to talk to you as Dr. Hamilton, because I want to talk about the career, the commitment. I want to talk about the you behind the GP, the you that's behind the doctor that's got you to where you are in life now. So Jill, the first thing I want to ask is, did you always want to be a GP? Because I know for a fact that I think anybody understands that it's a long process to get to anywhere in the medical industry where you're of a stature in that environment, and you have to have these qualifications to be somebody that's renowned as high expectations. So how long did it actually take you to qualify? And at what point did you decide that being a GP was the thing for you?
So I didn't approach it in a particularly straightforward route, and I can't say that I always wanted to be a GP. I think I, like most people, went to school, had the expectations I'd do A levels, and then, if I did well enough to go to uni, and I did, but I had no clear idea what I wanted to do. I knew I enjoyed the sciences, and I was probably better at science than other things. So I think up until probably university, finishing university, I was just probably going along with the flow as most sort of my sort of peer group, really, to be honest. And then I think, if I'm honest, I much preferred university to school. And I probably did better at university because it's a bit more self-directed, and I much rather sort of go on my own steam rather than, somebody telling me what to do. I've always been sort of fairly independent in that way. But then I think, like most people, you finish university and then you don't really have a clue what to do. I mean, a lot of people are quite focused and know what they want to do. That certainly wasn't the case for me. So my sort of journey was, I then used my science degree, and I worked in a hospital, and then I became friendly with junior doctors and people sort of similar age to me. And then I thought, well, if I want to go off and do something like medicine, I better do it now before I get sort of too entrenched in life, before sort of, buying houses, getting married, children, all those kind of things. So then, so I sort of took a bit of a big decision to go back to university. I don't think I'd ever expressed particularly wanting to be a doctor to friends or family. So I think people were quite, are you sure? Do you want to do that? I think I'd probably spent quite a bit of time myself before I actually felt confident enough to tell other people that's what I wanted to do. So I think I'd been thinking about it for a little bit longer than maybe I'd communicated to people. And then it went from them. I put my application in. Yeah, got in, and it went from then. But actually, the process of going to medical school, becoming a junior doctor, and then sort of doing your further training to become a sort of what we call it a CCT doctor, which is you complete your training when you go from being a junior doctor to either a consultant or a GP. That is about a 10-year process, so it takes quite a long time. But I think you don't have to, what my experience has been anyway, you don't have to do it in the shortest time period. You can, and I don't think it's even taking wrong turns. I think it's sometimes you just end up where you're meant to be. And if you just follow things that you're interested in, I think you will get to where you're meant to be.
The reason why I find that I wanted this conversation with you because I've known you for a long time now, and I tried to bring something to this podcast when we do this podcast. So, Impact Your Evolution has always been about giving a golden nugget to the listener that it might be in the conversation, it might be a singular word, it might be something in the sense of the context that we're talking about that they can take away, implement into their lives, and it might get them unstuck, over the hurdle, kind of through that barrier that's been holding them back in that area of life that they've been facing for a while. It's not just always about health and fitness and all of those kinds of things, but I think a lot of people that are looking to be inspired but aspirational at the same time is that they want to set themselves goals that make them feel like they're working towards something that's pretty big. And I think that's why a lot of people start with that whole mindset of, oh, I'll start a business. And they kind of go down the routes of, I'll do something that I'm good at that's hobby based. So they've already got a natural ability in something that they're already pretty good at. The thing that I find so curious is about the industry that you're in and it being in the medical industry is I don't think, because obviously nobody has that level of hobby based, you can't be intentional at a young age to make a decision about being a GP, because I think from my understanding is looking at this from kind of like the outside perspective, the zoomed out, is you can want to be a doctor, but that level of commitment you can't even begin to express at an early stage in life, because I don't think we're actually in a place to be able to, let's say, tolerate, because like you said, you went to university, you did science, and then you went back to university again to study becoming a doctor. Now, for me, and I think a lot of people, I did want to do the university thing, but my decisions at that point in time were taking me in different directions. So I never did the university thing. But I can understand that level of commitment that somebody makes from like 18 through to their early 20s when it comes down to, this is what I would like to do with my future. And that can be anything that you get a degree for that kind of pushes you into that, hopefully that stature of an employment role or a career based or a business that you tend to start. But did you ever feel like when you went back to university to say that I'm going to study to become a GP or a consultant or whatever the direction that it was going to take you in, did it ever feel like you were starting again, sort of like past the point of doing the education part already? Because that's what I'm curious about, is that whole, I think a lot of people find themselves stuck at a point in time in life where they go, oh, well, it's just past me now. It's beyond my point right now, so I can't go and do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think one of the things I've probably got to say is that I am, privileged in terms that I haven't had to go out or particularly worry about how to fund things. And I know not everybody comes from that level where they're able to do that. And things like finances and things like that are of concern. So for me, I was really lucky in terms of that. I think university fees now are really expensive. It was all affordable. It was manageable when I did it, and that's not the case anymore. So I know people now get into huge amounts of student debt. When I decided to go back, you did have to pay for tuition, you did have to sort of pay for things, but it's not to the degree now. So I know people that are did this, much more recently than I've done, and they're coming out with £100,000 worth of debt. So I certainly
Wow.
would. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a completely different decision. And I must say, I do feel quite privileged that I was never in that position. So I think that's quite important to say up front. Decisions might have been different had they have been like that. But I think, yeah, it's a difficult one, and I think people now today would probably make a different decision because of the actual sort of the financial implications it would have. So in terms of, did I feel sort of too old? No, I didn't. I quite like that renewing, doing something different. And I felt it was building on what I had before. And to be honest, I don't think at 18 I would have been ready to have gone to university and do medicine. I went and did a science degree, and it was really good. It was really fun. And I learned a lot. I don't think there was quite that level of commitment that, I didn't have to, commit to being a doctor at that point, because degrees for most people, it's just a transferable skill. I went back to university about the age of 24, 25, and I had worked for a few years in between. So I was able to, mostly self-fund myself going back into my second degree. But yeah, so I don't think that I felt too old. I think had I been a little bit older, that might have been different. But I think, having a young outlook, I must say I've never been sort of old beyond my years. I've always felt a lot younger than I am. So I think that's probably helped.
You might have seen me grinning for a second there because I wrote down a word while she was speaking. Then it's because I literally latched onto it. You said renewing, and instantly I went, "You've nailed it. You've absolutely nailed it." With regards to when you were saying that you never felt too old, you never felt that it was out of reach, you never felt that you kind of gone past that point. And I think this is definitely something. I've been a business owner since I've been 18 years old. I'm 42 this year. So I can say I've got a bit of time underneath me with regards to being out there in the world and figuring out the highs and lows and riding those waves when they come in, whatever shape or form that they may be in at those points in time in life. But when I have conversations with people and I know a lot of business owners now by just networking, people in the industries, should I say, because I've been in multiple industries over the years, but more so right now where I'm kind of expanding out into this health benefits world and communicating with companies out there. I'm building connections with people. And as I'm having these conversations, one of the things I tend to find, or the thing that I tend to be asking people is, you see people at different stages of life. And I'm talking about the timeline of life where I think a lot of people now look to trying to be a successful entrepreneur because it sounds sexy these days at the youngest age possible, because it's just, if I'm a millionaire by the time I'm 30, I've kind of succeeded with life. And it's this done thing that's shared around the whole social media thing again these days. But I think that kind of gives a negative perspective from a lot of people out there that are only just at a point, 30s and 40s, really starting to figure out what they've experienced in life and the directions that it's kind of pointed them in. You said there that at 24, you decided to then go, I'm going to go back to university and I'm going to study to be a medical professional at that point. For me, that whole renewing thing, it really slapped me at that point, because I thought, actually, you know what? At 30, when I thought my life was kind of done with going through a whole mental health breakdown and being in a previous industry, and I just thought, there is no way at this point in life can I ever think about building something to move forward with and creating something with the future. But the thing that makes me smile about that is that word renewing, is that it is so renewing to you as a person to set a goal that's outside of your comfort zone right now. And you say to yourself, I'm going to actually, you know what, I'm going to pursue something, and I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know that I have an ability to be able to say, I like to be able to say that I'm not the most educated person, granted, by far, in comparison to me and you sat in this conversation right now. You're far more educated than what I am. But what I have got is a lot of life experience, because I've lived through a lot of different scenarios throughout life. So I'm educated to a degree in the sense of experience. How can I use that and leverage that on a day-to-day basis? And that's that renewing word that popped up there. And I just thought straight away, I latched onto that and I thought, Jill's nailed it. It is about renewing at different stages. You look at people that are achieving things at great success, and they say the best years are really your 40s and your 50s. That's when you really start to see the success of life from the decisions that you've made earlier on in life that's taking you to where you're supposed to go. And because of this narrative that you're supposed to try and be as successful as you can, as in early as life as you can, I think it's giving people a false perspective as to what they can physically do for themselves to achieve high level success in a career that is going to push them outside of their comfort zone. You're living proof of this because you've done something similar to saying, I'm not out, I'm not surpassed the point in life where I can go and do something that is quite substantial now. And even to this day now, you've now undertaken something that's going to move you even further forwards in your future that you're again studying for. There's a long-term commitment. So just, I'm not going to allude to what it is. I'll let you let the listeners know with regards to what it is that in the past few weeks that you started, there is another commitment for the next, is it 2 to 3 years, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it that you've now committed to? Because most people would say, actually, I've studied to be a GP now. I don't really want to go back into committing myself to any more studying. I'm just going to kind of ride this process out now and through to retirement. You've recently committed to something that's going to further your career even more because you know that you're capable of doing so. What is it? And tell me the decision as to why.
So yeah, so I've recently started an MBA. So that's a Master's of Business, and that's in Leadership and Management. And I think the reason that I've undertaken that was because I'm sort of fallen into being, working in leadership because I'm a GP partner, and I've had sort of older, more experienced partners that I've sort of learned from, but I've realised now that the landscape is changing. You know, when they retire, and then I'm sort of more on my own. You need a bit more. You need a bit more than that. I think you need to have some sort of formal knowledge and education to move things forward, and to be able to use all those transferable skills I've learned. So for me, it was something that I could apply for. I didn't know if I'd get it or not, and I did. But I think I had that sort of curiousness. I knew I could, fulfill my role, but then it's sort of what's in the future, what's forward, what could trip me up. I think I am fairly future focused, and I just want to make sure that I'm planning for the future, and I'm not leaving myself with a lack of knowledge or a lack of sort of skills or anything to do what I need to do. I mean, one of the things that I would say, I mean, it's a sort of a bit of a family joke about sort of all, what ridiculous thing is you're going to undertake now or decide to do, or things like that. And, by all means, I mean, I only sort of particularly talk about things that have been successful. I'm probably started and stopped lots of things that actually I didn't carry on with because you go so far and it's not useful or having an impact. And I think that's also important to be able to sort of put the brakes on things when you need to. And then I think it's important to know when to push forward and try something new and try new projects. I think it's difficult to get that balance between stopping and starting lots of things and never seeing anything through to completion. And I think that's where the balance is difficult, and it's not black or white. So it's not being somebody that doesn't complete things but starts lots of projects. It is that grey area in the middle, isn't it? Find the things that are going to be useful. Try lots of things, but not all of them are going to stick. So I think that's what I would say. I say just make sure that if you do find the right thing, put everything into it. I would say that I tend to put sort of 150% into things. That can be quite wearing, and that can be quite draining at times. But one of the things that I find that when that happens, you've got to be able to make sure that you've got something else, all right? So it's not all or nothing. You have got other things in your life to fall back on.
So I'm going to kind of segue on that because I think to know that you've got something to fall back on, you've got something that you can pivot on. I firmly believe that most people, if not everybody, they settle into this, whether it's a comfort thing or not. I'm going to choose a career in this area, and I'm just going to stick with this, and I'm going to ride this until the wheels fall off or something in life changes, and then I'll figure it out after that. But I think most people don't leverage something that is very useful to them, and that is life experience, the things that you go through in day-to-day life. So you are naturally a caring person. You are a person that, from what I've got to understand and know as an individual, you are one that's always wanting to be aware of where somebody's at. You want to help them move forwards. You want to help them get over an issue that they're currently maybe stuck with, and that's kind of taking you down the health and medical route of making sure people are well looked after. But doing the MBA is kind of the pivot, is to you're gaining something else now through the experience of what you're currently doing that's going to give you another opportunity later on down the line. And that opportunity might not be completely clear right now. And that I get because I've had numerous mentors over the years that have shown me different ways of thinking, operating, points when you create leverage, which is what you're doing right now. And I think just to kind of bring this back around to the whole high expectation individual, when you look at being somebody that is of high expectation of your own results, knowing when to cut that tie from what you said there, you can try many, many, many things and be okay with saying, actually, you know what, this isn't going to work for me right now. Let me move on to the next focus. Drilling down on somebody saying, pick one thing, stick with it, and run that through until the very end, I can pretty much guarantee is going to make somebody feel very, very miserable if that's not the thing that they feel really passionate about doing. You're fortunate that you've kind of found that area that you're naturally very well absorbed in education on. You tend to retain a lot of what it is that you know about being a GP. Whereas some people just kind of go, I'll do the bare minimum to get across a threshold. This gets me into an industry, and then I'm kind of stuck there now. It's like that's where I'm at. My encouragement, and this is kind of like what I want to leave the listeners with a golden nugget on this, is there's a few things I know that you do that keeps you on track as a high level, high performing individual, but also what I would also like, not just knowing what it is that you do day to day that can, or maybe month to month, that keeps you moving forwards, but what is it that you would say to yourself maybe 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, when that decision that was being made, to really help a listener say, maybe I'm not actually stuck. Maybe there is a possibility. Maybe there is something more for me, but what do I need to hear right now that kind of catapults me into momentum? So first of all, we'll cover what keeps you on track. The next one, what moves me forward into momentum.
Okay. I think what keeps you on track is having some sort of personal goals. You know, what's important in life for you, and what's important for me might be completely different from someone else, and that doesn't make it better or worse. I think, you know, it's just important to have some goals, and you know, where do you want to be in 10 years time? What do I want people to think of me? And I think that's how I've always tried to live. um and and I think, you know, if you are not enjoying something, if you're not and if you're a bit miserable, and that is all the time, something is off, something isn't right. So I think, you know, surrounding yourself with the right people is important. And I think sometimes, you know, you don't need lots and lots of people in your life. I mean, I do think, you know, community is really important and family is really important. But I think making sure that you've got the right people in your life, people that you look up to, that you're inspired to. And I've been really lucky that I've had lots of people in my life in lots of different facets that I've just thought, you know, I'll take a bit from there, I'll take a bit from there, and you learn lots, and then hopefully you give back as well. So I think looking at people, having people that not to copy, but people that you sort of, you think you can learn bits from. I think
Mirror
that's
some
great.
actions from kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's always been important. And you know, don't just carry on doing something if it's awful, if it's making you feel unrewarded. You know, life is too short. I've always had that feeling that you're on, you know, nobody knows what tomorrow's going to bring. Nobody knows if we're here for a short amount of time, a long amount of time. So to try and make things count, you know, nobody wants to look back and go, I wish I did that. I wish you know, I don't think anybody is going to say, I wish I did a bit more paperwork. Wish I did a bit more just absolutely useless, brain numbing, pointless things. You want to look back on the things and say, that made a difference, and I can look in the mirror and be proud of myself. So I think those kind of things, and just have check-ins with yourself. And I think in terms of momentum, the most important thing is that you remain curious about things, that you want to look into things a bit deeper, you want to push it on, use what you've learned to then move forward. And I think that will make things interesting. And if things aren't interesting, you're going to stop being bothered quite quickly about them. So I think that's important.
I think that's a perfect golden nugget to kind of leave somebody with is you've got to have an interest. I mean, you don't always have to do the thing that you're best at. And this is especially if it's coming down to like business and those kind of things. Because not everybody that succeeds in business it's not their qualification or it's not their natural ability that makes them good at what it is. But I think there's always something that you're curious about. And that curiosity is the thing that can lead you somewhere that opens up avenues that you may have dismissed at some point in your life. So that curiosity is the golden nugget. I think you being curious to know what more there is out there, and it doesn't end at just becoming a GP. Now you're doing an MBA. I think myself being a business owner for going on it's too long to really want to say, but for a while, let's say. It's just the curiosity of where that can take me, I think, is the thing that keeps me ticking over too. So just to chime out from what it is that you're going to take away on this one is if you were ever questioning at whatever stage in life you're currently at, whether you are in your 20s and you're looking to the future and you're aspirational about it, and whether it's going to be a GP that you're going to become or you're going to start a business or whatever it may be, but maybe in your 30s or in your 40s or even your 50s and you're thinking, life's done with me. Life's I've gone through the cycle and there's nothing left for me to really experience. Taking there what Jill says, curiosity is the thing that's going to keep you moving forwards. That is the perfect golden nugget for you to be able to look at what are you curious about now that could lead you somewhere that may be different from where you're currently at, or keep you pursuing the thing that you're really, really passionate or interested about, because that's going to be the thing that drives you forwards into living that future, living that life that you want to be able to build, that doesn't keep you stuck where you're currently at in the way that you're currently thinking. Because that's what it's really about, is impacting your evolution is about moving you forwards from where you currently are, overcoming those obstacles, overcoming those hurdles, and building something for yourself of the future that you get to live and create now moving forwards. So Jill, thank you for actually, I really appreciate this one, because it's not often that I get to kind of like open up on your journey, your views, what's kind of really driven you forwards in becoming a GP and now going down the routes of qualifying with the MBA. And to get to sit with you and talk about the personal side of what this really means. The business side's great. The MedFit episodes that we do are fantastic, but I just wanted to really sort of show my appreciation for you showing up, giving people the background story to you, the individual that sits behind the qualification, like what it is that you've committed yourself over the last 20 years to get to where you are. And there's still options there for you. There's still interest. There's still curiosity in life. And that for me is just to be able to give that back to somebody else and say that it doesn't end where you're currently at. There's still more out there. And I think you're living proof of that. And I just wanted to be able to say thank you for being here to share that, but also just being in my environment that I get to kind of explore these questions and these conversations with you. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Okay. And I think one thing I'd also just mention as well is things don't have to be perfect. And one of the things that I've probably learned over the years is that actually just being committed to something, having a little bit of relentlessness just to go forward, that actually for me carries a lot more weight than doing everything perfectly first time. So I think that's probably one of the things that I would just say I've learned as I've get older is just to sort of just be a little bit relentless with things that are important, and then relax a bit on the things that aren't.
See, double value at the end of that one. If you've stuck around, you've heard more than what we promised you to begin with. Thank you, appreciate it, Jill. So, Impact Your Evolution. Future episodes that are planned that are coming up. There's more guests in the pipeline. There are more guests from different industries and different backgrounds, and some pretty spicy conversations that I know that I'm going to be bringing with a few of them. So it'll be interesting to see what you think. So you can always get in touch with us pretty much anywhere on social media. You can contact me, at Coach Andy James, on all of the platforms at Coach Andy James. And you can also jump onto impacthealthclub.co.uk as well as all of the other areas that Impact Health Club actually facilitate over social media as well, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all the other platforms. So appreciate you for being here. Thank you again, as always. Jill, thank you. We'll catch you in another episode on the Medford episode soon. You have an awesome day. Take care.